Good morning. It is the 8th of December. I am Joe Neighbour from Signal Centre, and today is the latest episode of Talking Ball. Still no Steve, unfortunately, still feeling a little bit under the weather, so obviously wishing him well, and I'm sure he will be back very soon. So let's get stuck into the latest headlines then and what's moving markets. Clearly, there has been a push back into riskier assets over the last 24 hours or so. Roared back into life, really. Speculators have loaded up on all speculative corners of the market. We've seen US stocks with their biggest surge since March, and all averages climbing roughly 2% yesterday. That was enough for the S&P to wipe out all of the drops suffered after the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's hawkish tilt last week. And in Europe, stocks posted their best day in more than a year. So really strong stuff out there. I guess that's coming off the back of the fact that the Omicron variant isn't as damaging or severe as people initially thought it would be. That is despite Pfizer's claims that the vaccine provides less immunity to Omicron than other major versions of COVID-19. But clearly, there seems to be a feeling at the moment that the infections aren't leading to more severe cases of the variant, so that's good. We also had a video call between Presidents Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin yesterday. That lasted about 2 hours and will take months to figure out if the sides managed to defuse the crisis over Ukraine. Biden sought to send a clear message, and Russia must not go ahead with an invasion of Ukraine as US fears it might. As we talked about previously, there was a build-up of um, arms on the border. So the momentum kept rolling overnight in the Asian markets, likes of the Japanese Nikkei and the Chinese CSI 300 leading the push higher. That follows off the back of the US rally, which obviously we've just talked about. So all looking pretty good. There is a bit of a feeling that, particularly in respect of interest rates in the UK, we're expecting those to be moved higher at the meeting in December, but there is now rumours and suggestions that that may actually be pushed back, and that's obviously fueling this appetite for risk this morning. So let's get stuck into some charts. I'm going to start off with FX today, and as always with a dollar index. So yesterday, really not much to talk about here. A doji candle in its purest form, really. It closed pretty much where it opened. We saw a little bit of wiggling on either side, but really not much to go by. Overall, still looks pretty bullish, and the underlying strength remains pretty strong. And on the flip side of that, we can expect that it was a pretty muted session also in euro dollar, although off the worst prices of the day to close still in the red, a bit higher today by 0.15%, but overall, as we can see, we've got this downtrend and therefore lower prices can be expected. In terms of cable, again, not really much going on yesterday. We did close lower, but again, off of the worst levels of the session, and really not doing an awful lot today, up by 0.03%. So really calm on the FX side of things. Euro sterling yesterday, not a lot, another doji posted. If we take a look at some of the riskier assets, so looking at Aussie versus the US dollar, we can see this is the risk move that we've been talking about. We've seen a big move to the upside. We're back above this support now at 71.06, and possibly taking out this short-term downtrend channel, which may lead to an even higher correction in the very short term. Overall, still looks pretty bearish, but room for a bit of a correction to the upside. And I'm sure, well, not quite the case actually with New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Yes, that did see a decent move to the upside yesterday, but struggling a bit today. Still in the red versus the US dollar as it stands. But all in all, pretty quiet for currencies yesterday. And as we can see, Aussie US dollar really sort of leading the charge as a riskier play, and looks okay for the short term. So let's move on to cryptos. So Bitcoin yesterday, what did that do? Just really stabilized, to be honest. A doji, it closed mildly higher on the day, not really much going on, which is a surprise, really, given that there was a push to riskier assets and Bitcoin got left behind, really. So, yeah, not much going on there at the moment. Ethereum is outperforming today. That's up by 1.5%, still trapped within this range. Yesterday, we saw a bit of indecision. We had some sell levels in around about 44.55 for an intraday idea, which doesn't look like it got filled. So looking for more range bound price action on that front. And finally, Ripple, that didn't do an awful lot yesterday, remains below this key support at 85.90. And while that's the case, there is still scope for further downside in Ripple. If we take a look now at commodities, let's look at oil. In the risk-on environment, that thrived yesterday and has done over the last couple of days. We've continued to see prices move higher from this reversal that we posted on the 2nd of December, pushed higher again yesterday. We've got some resistance up here at 74.82, which will kind of be a retest of the broken uptrend channel, and also some horizontal resistance here. So it remains to see how it reacts around that sort of level. As I kind of alluded to earlier in the week, there's maybe a top pattern forming here. It's very early stages. We still need some sort of right shoulder to take shape, but that's worth bearing in mind for now. But at the moment, benefiting obviously from the risk on conditions. If we take a look at gold, not really much going on here. We've seen a couple of days of strength, but all in all, really limited opportunities on gold at the moment. Not much going on constructively from a technical perspective. So do be careful if you're trading this market at the minute, because it's certainly not the most interesting. Okay, let's take a look at indices. FTSE 100 nearly back up to those highs that we posted in November at 74.05. Really 3 strong days of price action, obviously including today in that, of which is not done yet. So it looks like we're probably going to get a challenge of that today, I would have thought. And then if we can get above that, then we're trying to eye up the pre-pandemic highs, which are up here around sort of 76.83. So, that would be good. And above that, we've got the previous all-time highs up at sort of 78.90. So still some work to do for the FTSE 100. Just sort of caught a glimpse there, maybe that there could be a bit of a downtrend resistance line to consider. Let's just draw that on. So we've got some touch points there. We've got obviously the high, touch point, touch point, touch point, and then we're into this sort of 74.05 level really. So that could be quite interesting to see if it can overcome that. And if it does, then a lot of blue sky for it to move into up here. So looking pretty good on the FTSE front today. If we look at the DAX, that's underperforming a bit, although it did have a really good move to the upside yesterday, as we touched upon at the start of the video. We've rallied into resistance at 15.863, and there's been a bit of stalling on that at the moment. Quite interesting. I think maybe again, possibly we are forming some sort of top here, which is taking a bit of time to build, over a number of months. But the price action is beginning to sort of round off a little bit at the top, which is always a little bit of a worrying sign, and a signal that a top could be taking shape. So worth bearing in mind, it's very speculative at this stage to call it that, because it still needs to do a lot technically for that to play out. But overall, obviously, we've seen 2 very strong days in a row, so naturally you'd expect maybe a little bit of consolidation, particularly when there are some resistance levels that it needs to overcome. Let's take a look at the US market, starting with the NASDAQ. This pushed higher really nicely from this support of 15,708. Really strong, impulsive move to the upside yesterday. As we said, that was the biggest update, I think, since March in US stocks. So, quite a considerable uplift. We are pushing higher a little bit on the futures market today. The previous all-time high comes in at 16,768, which will be the natural target on the upside for the NASDAQ to keep watch of today. Again, maybe a little bit of rounding formation going on here. So if we fail to make a new high or a higher high, then maybe we are in the process of forming a small top. Very speculative to say that at the moment, and clearly the dominant trend is still very, very strong. So you've got to be pretty brave to back against that at the moment. Let's take a look at the S&P 500 again. Like the NASDAQ, really strong move to the upside. 4551 was the big support, did a job of holding, and now we're pretty close to those highs again. 4,744 on the S&P is the key level to watch today. That's that previous high that we posted on the 22nd of November. And given the underlying strength of the trend, you'd be a brave man to back against new all-time highs being printed pretty soon. Dow Jones, a little bit of work to do before that gets back up to the highs, but realistically they're not far away. It's only really one good day away from getting back up to those levels and taking out that high at 36,563. As you can see, 3 really strong days in there with a little bit of a pullback on the 3rd of December. Posting a bit of green today. It is early in the session, of course, and this is just the futures, but all in all, looks pretty good to continue moving higher and probably go and test those highs very soon. Okay, gun to the head trades from yesterday. So it's only one trade because obviously Steve's not around this week. And yesterday I took a look at Ethereum. I sold that at 4,418 and made 131 pips come the 9 p.m. close when we shut these trades off to make 0.52R. So that was obviously quite welcome. Not sure how that's looking today. I was actually looking at it from the intraday charts, which is now a bit messy because I've over annotated that. Let's see if I can clean that up. So that was the level I was sort of really looking to get short, which never got there. So I took the short earlier on the video that I did yesterday, which worked out quite nicely. So that's pretty good. Do I feel the same about that today? If you put a gun to my head, probably not. So where am I going to go? I mean, looking at these US markets, you'd be, as I said, a brave man to bet against them going on to hit all-time highs, but there's been a very strong move already. And just looking at this on an intraday basis, there is some resistance here. So probably not going to look at that. In fact, what I could do is attempt a really speculative short sell on one of these markets. And I'm going to go for DAX. And the reason being, if you look at my watch list here on the right-hand side, all of these indices pretty much are in the green with the exception of the DAX. And now just Euro Stoxx 50 has turned red as well. We're into a big level here on my daily chart at 15,863. Quite like that level. So I'm going to have a stab at a counter trend trade on the DAX. We've broken out of this range, but maybe we'll get a retest of that. So let's have a go, shall we? Selling at 15,810. Going to go quite tight on the stop, just 68 ticks, which comes in at 15,878. And I'm going to look for a retest of this previous range, which we broke out from. So looking for a really healthy 5R on that today. It is counter trend, but let's see how it goes. It could work out. More than likely it won't, but if it does and it's a 5R winner, then that will be very welcome indeed. Okay, data today. So for the day ahead, we've got the Bank of Canada rate decision, which is out at 3 p.m. today. No change in policy is expected. So keep an eye out for that. There could be some commentary that comes out that moves these Canadian currencies around quite quickly. It is typically one of those currencies that can be very volatile. So potentially opportunity there, but yeah, do be careful of that. And then we've got crude inventories at 3:30. US EIA crude inventories previous week saw stockpiles fall by 910,000 barrels. That will keep the Canadian dollar on its toes as well, because it does have a correlation with the price of oil. But more importantly, obviously keep an eye out for the price of Brent crude and WTI come 3:30 p.m. later today. That is it from me. Nice and short today. Steve hopefully will be back tomorrow, hoping that he's feeling better and we can do a little bit more digging into these charts. Until then, trade safe everybody, and I'll be back tomorrow. Goodbye.